Well, Mike Turpin's here with us today. What we're going to talk about is his role with the State Regents of Higher Education. And you just finished a year term as the chairman.
Right, I sure did.
You're still on there. And
Right, I got 4 years ago.
yeah, but you're done with your year as a chairman, and your goal when you started, you said scholarships, more and more scholarships,
That was my obsession.
right? So we heard about that a lot, and now I'm asking you, what was the outcome of that?
I'm glad to report that it's gone well. And to a certain extent, on the scholarships, I'm trying to lead by example. Don't get me wrong, so many before me have done so much, and I stand on their shoulders. And I want to comment briefly, and we could talk a lot about it when we get going here, but like Oklahoma's Promise, I know you know a lot about. And that's a scholarship program that's unique to Oklahoma in so many ways, that the legislature and the governor and everybody's helped us with. And we're helping educate kids all over the state now if their families make $50,000 or less. So that's a beautiful thing Oklahoma has that's very unique and special to our state. But my personal obsession was, how do you overcome student debt? We got too much student debt in this country, and Oklahoma's better than most, but one national figure, last year, 71% of all the students that graduated in America with a four-year degree, 71% of them had student debt. Average debt about $30,000. I set out to raise $500,000, you know, in scholarship money all over the state of Oklahoma. And I've pretty much accomplished that goal with a lot of help from a lot of people all over the state.
You've got a lot of donors that have gotten on board with you.
Yes, and let's just start with my mother. My mother died about 3 years ago, and she was the most wonderful woman in the whole world. I wrote a book called Turpen Time, and the first chapter of the book is all about my mother. And my mother believed if you ain't giving, you ain't living. And so my first scholarship, Susan and I, my wife, who's a school teacher at U.S. Grant High School, we said, let's raise $150,000 in my mother's name at the University of Oklahoma, School of Drama, College of Drama, where my daughter just graduated, by the way. But we raised our money. And if you saw the list, I mean, I can't read off the whole list, but I mean, it's everybody from Coach Scott Brooks to Polly Nichols. I mean, just think about that. Former Coach Scott Brooks, who I know and love, he made a generous donation. Polly Nichols did, and about 100 others donated to a scholarship at the University of Oklahoma in my mother's name, which I was very grateful. Well, then I decided, let's take this act on the road, so to speak. And we had a big book review, a Turpen Time book review for Oklahoma City University. And Robert Henry he's the president there, and he kind of led the effort, and I appreciate it very much. We had 400 people show up at the Oklahoma History Center. And we had sponsors of that event to the tune of about $175,000. And that was for the Clara Looper Scholarship. And Clara Looper, as you know, is, I think, pretty much Oklahoma's answer or version of Rosa Parks. I mean, we all remember the cat's drug and her civil rights advocacy. So scholarships at Oklahoma City University that Larry Nichols originally started at Devon, but I was able to work with Robert Henry and all the people at Oklahoma City University and raise about $175,000 that night. Then I can go on and on. I'll stop with one other. I went to East Central University, and we raised $75,000 at East Central University with President John Hargrave down there for the Nikki Stonecipher Memorial Scholarships. Anyway, I just got obsessed with going on the road and trying to help anybody, anytime, anywhere raise scholarship money. Why? Because I know one way you beat student debt is more scholarships. Oklahoma is number 3 in the whole nation in affordability. Last study we saw, national study shows that Oklahoma, the state of Oklahoma, we're third in the whole nation in affordability for access to higher education. So my point is, we're talking about student debt here and the ramifications of it, but I want to be right up front and say Oklahoma's doing pretty good. All that being said, those that do have debt graduate with a degree in one hand and a ball and chain around their ankle to a certain extent. And some have the ball and chain, the debt, and maybe not a degree. My heart goes out to all of them. When we talk about the American dream, I'm just telling you, if you're paying off student debt, if you're paying off loans for the rest of your life, that you're starting out in a hole. I mean, there's just no question. So my obsession, I've said that 3 times probably, is scholarships, more scholarships. And that's why I've been a one-man band in my own way to go around this state and have what I call scholarship rallies. And it's worked pretty well. And of course, keep the tuition as low as we can. We're trying to do that. We're the 3rd most affordable in the whole country. And of course, thank the legislature and the governor for Oklahoma's Promise. I mean, that is very special. But for those kids that don't have access to scholarships, like Oklahoma's Promise, there's so many other scholarship programs out there, I just think we need to work harder and harder to create more scholarships. And that's what I've been trying to do. Just last week, I was in Edmond at the Best of Books bookstore. It's not book sales, we give the books away. I got a little book called Turpen Time. We just give the book away to anybody who wants to show up. But what I do is I got $25,000 in sponsors of my friends to contribute money to the Don and I Special Needs Scholarship at the University of Central Oklahoma. So that's just an example. That was last week. And so who shows up? Don Betts, the president of University of Central Oklahoma. It's their 125th anniversary, by the way. Great things are happening at UCO. Don Betts is there, Don and I's there, George Nye's there, and Joe Height, the owner of the bookstore. We have over 100 people there contributing to scholarships in Don and I's name at UCO. So students will get those scholarships, and they'll too avoid student debt to a certain extent. I mean, if we just keep doing this, I think we can, hear me now, believe me later. I got to say it again. Hear me now, believe me later. We can get to a point where we have debt-free college. Debt-free college, just like high school in Oklahoma. Can you imagine in this state where people could go to college, any college of their choice, public universities I'm talking about mostly. I can't control all the private universities, but debt-free college. If we had enough scholarships in place, in addition to Oklahoma's Promise. And I think that's a worthwhile goal.
Well, is there anything upcoming, new on the horizon that the Regents are looking at in this area, or any of the universities that you've talked to, presidents?
Well, I got two exciting things to say about that, and maybe three. I'll throw in a third one. First of all, I want to talk about the Regents. I'm still on the board of Regents. I'm very proud to be there. I appreciate the opportunity to serve all of the universities in the state as a higher ed regent. We're always talking about trying to expand Oklahoma's Promise a little bit. You know it as well as anybody. $50,000 or less, you get a free education in Oklahoma, pretty much. If your parents make $50,000 or less.
Your tuition's paid.
Well, thank you. And there is cost and book. Yeah.
I hear from parents.
No, I know.
It's not
so,
fees.
So thanks for.
It's a big chunk.
And thanks for helping me be more specific. But what if that 60? What if that was 50? That became 60, became 75? That anybody in the state of Oklahoma whose family made less than 70. That's what we talk about a lot. We need the help from the governor, and she's been a great leader in this area on Oklahoma's Promise and Complete College America. And we need the legislature, and everybody's looking at things like that. To answer your question more directly, what's happening right now, I'd like to introduce to the conversation here today something called reverse scholarships. Now, reverse scholarship is now you're helping somebody who's already graduated retire their student debt, if you will. Now, it's a beautiful, beautiful concept. And I've taken the idea and run with it in my own way. I've talked to several corporate leaders in Oklahoma City and said, what about bringing students back that have already graduated? Maybe one per university, the 25 public colleges and universities, one a year, and retire their debt for them. They're out in the world working already. Burn their mortgage, so to speak. Retire their debt.
So maybe they didn't get the scholarship up front, but now help them that they've graduated and are working.
Yes, I mean, right now in America there's 1.3 trillion in student debt. 1.3 trillion in student debt. Oklahoma's share of that, if you just did it by population, is about $10 billion. We have people in this state with about $10 billion in student debt. I'd like to figure out a way to help some of them. Debt retirement, if you will. But slow down. Specifically, go to the University of Oklahoma right now, and it's the Janine Rainbow College of Education reverse scholarship program. You've written about it. It's amazing how well it's working. If you graduate from their College of Education and you teach in Oklahoma, each year they'll retire 25% of your accrued student debt. And they're doing a scholarship just like that at OCCC. Well, they're in collaboration with UCO, Don Betts, the very progressive president at UCO, and Rob New, our new school superintendent in Oklahoma City. It's called OKC Go. So those three entities have come together. If you teach in Oklahoma City, they will retire your debt over so many years. The student debt that's already been accrued. That's called, that in essence, those are two examples of reverse scholarships. People that have already graduated, they've accrued student debt, and you help them after they get out if they go into teaching, for example, in those two cases. I like those new ideas create new realities.